to the 2024 Ian Purcell Oration. I'm really, really excited for CJ to talk about were there intersex dinosaurs. An apology from Adam Troy, who was going to do a welcome to country, but unfortunately wasn't able to make it tonight. So I'll just do an acknowledgement of country. So I'd just like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the Kaurna land tonight. The Kaurna land and all these lands have been stolen. They have never been ceded. We stand in solidarity with our First Nations people, and particularly our LGBTIQA plus First Nations people, and our brother boys and sister girls. Sarah in particular wants to acknowledge the systemic barriers and discrimination that is still faced by their community today. Sarah also supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart.
And there I was at 14 in my Enfield Harriers uniform, doing the upside down bicycle, aiming for the Olympics, which would have been when I was 18. However, I trained hard, really hard. I trained with Jess Java, who would, during summer, take you down the sandhills, make you run up and down them until you vomited. At my local training oval, a rope around my waist with a small tractor tyre, and you'd, work up your quads, running backwards uphill. I was determined, and I won all the high school championships and so on. But around about that time, I had a problem internally. I developed a double inguinal hernia. If you don't know what that is, it's in your groin, and your insides are trying to push out through your stomach wall, through your muscles. It was very, very convenient for the doctors and specialists who looked after me in the next couple of years. Because I was then sent off for all these tests. I was poked and prodded, urine tests, fingers up my bum, quite invasive for a young girl who was unkissed and so on. And all I wanted was for that damn hernia to go away. So I agreed to do this. Important facts. Now, non-consensual. I wasn't asked. I guess my parents were. Because I found this when my mother died. That's the official thing, saying, turn up to hospital, lovey. I don't know if they were coerced, but I know my family thought that doctors were gods, so you did what they said. And that effectively sealed my fate. That point on, everything changed. Although not 100%, I did have a boyfriend, a high school boyfriend at the time, and I think this is the absolute definition of irony, and you mightn't be able to read the very faded writing, but it's basically, it's get well soon. And I thought all I had to get well from was that surgery. What did they tell me? They fixed the hernia, but while they were in there, they had a good little look around, and this is what they told me: I had diseased ovaries. So they removed them. So here I am, a couple of weeks before my 16th birthday, about to go on to year 12, and I'm being told I'll never menstruate, I'll never have children, I need to take hormone replacement therapy for the rest of my life, but go away and have a nice life. Everything will be fine. So I did. I met my future husband, ex-husband, when I was 16 and a half. Got married just before my 20th birthday. Happy, I was. But he was pretty much the only person other than my parents who knew my secret. And the secret came out just before then, because my mother had been told that before she gets married, she's going to have to perhaps have some plastic surgery down there to make her more suitable for marriage. How did I find out then the absolute truth. Well, my mum, I came down from Darwin where I was living with Ken and went to see the plastic surgeon. He had to leave the room. The letter from the specialist was on the table. I was really good at reading upside down. I've got what? You did what? You took what? The 3 whats were, she's got testicular feminisation, not complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, we'll call that. Not intersex, that would have been nice, sounded better. They had taken undescended testes out of my tummy, effectively sterilising me. The reason being that the thought of surgeons at the time was those organs that aren't functioning could become cancerous. So let's take them out. Not thinking about the long-term impacts. And one of those impacts, and it took me forever to work this out, I finally got to a counsellor, because by the way, I wasn't referred to an endocrinologist, a counsellor, given any literature, nothing, just sent off into the wilderness like a lone Tyrannosaurus rex, you know, feeling very weird, and being told not to tell anybody. And so you can see how the hernia became very convenient for the doctors to try and keep me in the dark for a while. If I hadn't have gone on to the plastic surgeon, I don't know when I would have found out. I refused the surgery and they sent me home with a glass prophylactic and a tube of KY jelly, and morning and night I had to sit on said thing to prepare me for marriage. Happiest day of my life was when that shattered into a million pieces on the bathroom floor. And he and I went on our stupid way. Neither of us had had sex before. What did we know? We were just happy being together. We applied to adopt, sort of got rid of the not have children thing. But during this time, all your friends are getting married, all your friends are having kids, all the girls you know have that time of the month. They have pimples and acne and they sweat. I'm perspiring a bit now actually, but I hardly do at all. And my body hair is almost minimal. That's a relevant point shortly. Fair skin, I'm taller than most because I have XY chromosomes. Complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. So the fetus, my XY fetus, could not absorb androgen, could not make the boy that I was supposed to be. And so the default position, and I'm not making that up, because we all start off essentially female/neutral, and it's only the input of estrogen or testosterone or androgen that starts that conversion. So we all have, boys have fannies, they're just different, and girls have penises, they're just different. It's the same genetic material. And if you think about it, vas deferens in a man with the 2 gonads and the fallopian tubes with a gland on the end, they're not that dissimilar, are they? So, but I didn't know any of this until my mid to late 40s. So I was just living my perfect life at the time. Fast forward to about, God, Dad's been gone 5 years, 1999, nearly 15 years ago. And my dear Dad, I discovered much later, was still unaware of his role, or lack thereof, that's really important, in my status. And it wasn't until we were all asked to vote on the same-sex marriage issue. And I asked my dad, how are you going to vote? And he said, no, of course. I'm not going to vote for men to have sex. I went, really? You think that's what it's about? You know you've got an intersex daughter? And he just looked at me vaguely. And so I proceeded to sort of explain, as I've sort of explained to you, because I'm used to it now, used to talking about my pink bits, my squishy bits. He started crying. Never cried. And I went, what's up? What's wrong? And he said, it's my fault. I did it to you. Or I did it to your mother. I went, what? You had sex with her? Dirty bastard. And he said, no. Something must have happened to me during the war. I was exposed to a chemical or something. So, like, 75 years of his life, he thought, imagine looking at your daughter every day and thinking, I've harmed her in that way. In actual fact, that variation, that XY chromosome variation, is carried by my mum, who had another daughter who, other than her intellectual disability, as fertile as they come. I've seen other families, 3 daughters in one family, 2 girls born intersex, the other normal. It is genetic, but it can happen randomly. And just at this point, talking about genetics is a conversation I had at the very start of my involvement with the wonderful rainbow community. It was my first attempt to go meet some people, not intersex people, rainbow people. And Chris Davis was there. And I was wandering around looking for people to talk to. You know, if you don't know Chris, sadly she passed away just a couple of weeks ago from pancreatic cancer. I called her mum, because she was like a mum to me. But that first meeting, God, she was aggressive. Because I dared to say to her, no, intersex is different to you and your kind, because it's genetic. And she said, have you ever thought that how I am, being a lesbian woman, is also genetic? And that gave me pause. And I always remember that in any dealings I have with the beautiful rainbow community, that we're different, but we're the same. You can see, this is just one of many things I could have put up, that intersex people still, to this day, are an object of fascination. It's a bit like being in a circus, freak show circus. You know, the bearded woman, the ultra tall man, etc. Student doctors love when one of us is in hospital. Yeah, we really love being poked and prodded. And this whole notion that we need to be fixed. And it's still happening. I did say that things are moving along. But just a couple of years ago, the Dutch government did a formal apology. You know, it's another one of those sorry things. More countries need to do that. And coming back to sport, to go full circle on that, not much has changed there. There's a couple of statements there. Again, just a couple of years ago. And you're going to know what's coming next. The furor over her competing at the Paris Olympics. Iman Khalif. She's an intersex person. And she's been scrutinised and harassed. And I chose that photograph because she's exultant, a bit like Betty Cuthbert going over that finish line. And here's that curiosity. Yes, she does look a little male, and yes, she has XY chromosomes. They're not normal ones. Have a look under her arm. You see any body hair? She didn't go get waxed the day before. And Custer, or to be more precise, Mokati Custer Semenya. My birthday's the 5th of January. She was born 40 years after me. Still being harassed, hounded, scrutinised. what I love in all the stuff that I read about her in researching this comes next. I'll leave you to read it. "50 People That Matter, 2010. South African Sportswoman of the Year. Bronze Order of Ikamanga. Married. Twice. One traditional, one civil. Managed to bring 2 daughters into the union. Shortlisted for 2016 World Athlete of the Year. Profiled in a documentary. Wrote a memoir. Was named by the New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice. Forget about all the negativity. Forget about all the harassment, all the tragedy, all the self-loathing she would have had, the scrutiny. I just think that's a wonderful postscript to her. Oops. I think I went too fast there. I wonder if I had competed at age 18 in the Olympics like I wanted, if I hadn't had that surgery, whether I would have made it onto the podium, whether I would be celebrated or castigated for my intersex status. Because there was a period of time, and I can't give you the exacts, but when that whole focus on testing women for these sorts of things was not done for quite a while. Seemed to bring it out of the kit bag when they felt like it. So I mentioned that I did a lot of research. I went down so many rabbit holes. My goodness me. Just to give you a little hint, paleontology, Big Bang Theory, how did dinosaurs procreate and have sex? Can we tell their sex from their bones? What other animals change their sex for procreation or due to environmental factors? I seem to recall reading something about fish in a river that were all turning female because the wastewater from the local sewage plant was pumping estrogen into the water because women are on the pill. So that's kind of a form of evolution. Who's to say that other forms didn't occur? Religious views came up. I kept them out of this equation, hope you don't mind. And even weird cryptic crossword clues, and the answers to those clues, I went back to find them and I couldn't, but it was like intersex porn star names for dinosaurs. You know that thing that goes around every now and then, what's your favourite colour and what did you have to eat last night? You put the two together and you become Dixie Belle or something, you know. So how about ancient history? There's wads of this, wads and wads and wads of this. And it's not my words, this is thanks to Wikipedia. But it's just a little touch. I think I touched on 4 particular bits of ancient history. You'd expect ancient Romans to have recorded stuff, like the Greeks. This is where the term hermaphrodite comes from, of course. And has a body, it's beautiful and delicate, like that of a woman, but it has masculine quality and vigour. Now, I've been told off for my masculine quality and vigour many, many times in my life. Not in a derogatory way, just having chutzpah. And it's chutzpah that kind of got me through the last 50 years, basically. But also considered monstrosities. And that theme ran through a lot of what I read. Children, babies who are obviously of confused gender, drowned, head smashed against a tree, just left to die, that sort of thing. Other cultures, lauded, beatified, considered gods or goddesses. How about Judaism? There wasn't much about this, but if you know anything about the Jewish culture, for example, when a woman is menstruating, she's not allowed to touch any man or boy or anything that that man or boy eats or uses for 2 weeks. She's considered dirty, kind of. So I'm not quite sure what to read into that. I don't know what a tum-tum is. But I do remember going to see Barbara Streisand in the movie Yentl, where I actually went with a date and he walked out. He said, "This is just a pack of bullshit." And I was mesmerised by her and also by this woman who was desperate to learn how to be a Jew, but a male Jew. So she impersonated a young man. Islam, now I thought that would be a bit revolutionary. 8th century. There's records. By the way, on the subject of records, I remember going to the old parade ground, the Nazi parade ground in Nuremberg, and the tour guide was explaining, you know, the women who were following Hitler religiously and vowing to produce children for the fatherland and so on. And any girl that couldn't do that was considered like all the others that were being shunted off to gas chambers and so on. So if I'd been a German intersex person, then wouldn't be here now. Their term translated to hermaphrodite. And then there was this one curious thing I had to put in there. So in Islamic law, inheritance is determined based on sex. So it's sometimes necessary to attempt to determine the biological sex of sexually ambiguous heirs. Okay, so who's going to sort that problem out? The first recorded case, attributed to a caliph named Ali, who had attempted to settle an inheritance case between 5 brothers in which one had both male and female urinary openings. And that is more common than you would think in intersex land, being born with 2 urethra. I know a young girl who was. So Ali advised the brothers that sex could be determined by sight of urination in a practice called kum al-mabal. So if the urine exited the male opening, the individual was male. If it exited the female opening, the individual was female. If it exited both openings simultaneously, as it did in this case, the heir would be given half of a male inheritance and half of a female inheritance. You can't make this stuff up. What about the mid-modern period, the Victorian era? This is when medical authors started trying to work it out. So they introduced terms true hermaphrodite, male pseudo-hermaphrodite, and female pseudo-hermaphrodite. So I probably, with my variation, would fit into that middle category. Testicular tissue, but female. Anatomy, not ambiguous, female. There's so many well-known people, and I don't have time to list some famous intersex people, but young people now, like models even, are coming out and claiming their intersex status and being interviewed and trying to normalise the whole thing. You see there Gottlieb Gottlich, a 19th century German travelling medical case. So not the freak show of the circus, the freak show of doctors and hospitals, carting his little kit bag of self around for people to examine. Amazing. And of course the French woman Herculine Barbin. Her her memoirs were published by Michel Foucault in 1980, and her birthday, 8th of November, is now marked as Intersex Day of Remembrance. Contemporary period, we start to get a bit technical about things. A fallometer to measure appropriate clitoris and penis length at birth. Anybody want to volunteer? Volunteers? No?
Oh, that's a bit long, Carol.
Couldn't help myself. The term intersex or intersexuality was coined by Richard Goldschmidt in 1917. That's a long time before I was born. The first suggestion to replace the term hermaphrodite with intersex didn't happen until the 1940s. What were they doing for 30 years, you know? It was taken up by specialists in the UK, and historical accounts from the early 20th century include that of Australian Florrie Cox, and I am going to research her in more depth, whose marriage was annulled due to malformation frigidity. I could have used that a few times, I think. Which makes me think about my family tree. So I mentioned that my mother carried the genetic anomaly on the Y chromosome, but she produced a normal daughter. She had 3 sisters who all produced normal children. A brother who I don't think ever had sex and was a bit odd. And she had 3 favourite aunties, one of whom never had children, my Auntie Mabs. And God damn it, I wished I'd known all this stuff before she died, because I would love to have had a conversation with her, because I think she was intersex. She married Uncle Harry just after the war. Every time I went to their house, which was often as a child, they were in different bedrooms. They didn't communicate much. She was a tall, imposing, fair-skinned woman with a singular determination. And I think she had a marriage of convenience with Uncle Harry, because, you know, if you weren't married back then, what were you? I would love to know. I would love to know. Well, we've talked about having genitalia modified to resemble what's considered normal. And surgeons, like if I had been born with obvious differences, it would have been considered a social emergency to fix me. And parents not generally consulted. And it's lots of supposedly intelligent people who don't ever want us to come and talk to them still believe it's better for a baby or a child's self to be changed when they're younger than when they're a mature adult. Early intervention helps avoid gender identity confusion. What a name. Optimal gender policy. You've got to love government lingo. And Moni, it's not money, it's Moni. Of course, it's been challenged. You know about all of this now. Advances in surgery have made it possible for surgeries to be concealed. Many people not aware of how frequently we're fixed. And then you have that movement where organisations started, and we've had that movement in the gay world and in lesbian land, and it took a long time to kick off because we're ashamed, we're embarrassed, we're told to keep quiet. So it takes a lot to come out, and Brett said in his introduction that for me, I had to kind of come out of an intersex closet. And the more I do this, the more it feels okay, the more I think I'm helping. The more people that know. I used to work in PR, and there's a theory that you do something wrong, you know, have a stuff up, you know, police officer smack somebody in the head when he shouldn't. All hell breaks loose. It's all over the news and everything. But the police collect money, they take kids to things, they do good deeds. None of that's heard. But you do something wrong and it's on the loud hailers. Sort of 7 to 8 times, I think, is the norm for doing something right and hoping that that will come out. So it takes a long time for that kind of momentum to come in any situation, and in particular in human rights organisations. And we now call, and the Darlington Statement does this, calls for an end to unnecessary normalising interventions. So what happened to me should never happen. It's embedded in the Darlington Statement. The Australian Capital Territory, go figure, have introduced such legislation. And I'm not going to talk about legislation today because that's real recent history. The first public demonstration took place in 1996, 2016, less than 30 years ago. And look where they chose to have it. And the Americans started support groups long before Australia did, but that is how I found out about the Australian support group. I went to the States for 3 months, bored out of my brain, went to a local library, found a reference to a support group in America, discovered that they were helping set up one in Australia, and that's when I went to that first meeting, when I was in my mid-40s. And this event is now commemorated annually around the world by Intersex Awareness Day. I wondered whether anybody had tried to do this, to sue for damages. I'm surprised more people haven't done it. And I remember hearing about Malta becoming the first country to outlaw non-consensual medical interventions. Again, 10 years ago, 9 years ago. Come on, rest of the world, catch up. And that is embedded in Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Security of person. I can't begin to tell you how many times I have felt very insecure in my life. People think that I'm bold and out there, and I'm the quintessential introverted extrovert. After this, I'll probably go and curl into a fetal ball in bed tonight and be very quiet tomorrow and recharge my batteries. But if I don't do stuff like this, how's anything going to change? And I do it with honour. It's not all bad. My mother loved pansies when I saw that image. And it's the reverse of the flag. No, it's not. Yeah, that's right, it's a purple ring, isn't it? I think I'd know. We have Intersex Peer Support Australia. I'm going to hurry up now because I'm 10 minutes over time. You can look up that organisation. So essentially there's 2 organisations in Australia, and I've been involved in both. Intersex Peer Support, we're a bunch of intersex people. In fact, last weekend there was, for the first time in about 3 years, a retreat, a get-together. I didn't go because I needed a holiday more than I needed to navel gaze and get in touch with my hurt self. And then you have Intersex Human Rights Australia, or ERA, and it's led by an amazing human being, Morgan Carpenter. He does put some people offside, but if there's a person who knows everything there is to know about intersex and what needs to happen, he's done a master's thesis in it. And this body is starting to get some funding, they're taking some staff on, a bit like Sarah, becoming more visible, less of the I for more of the I for intersex, less of the I for invisible. And you can see on their website a very long list of what they've done in the last decade. I mentioned Intersex Awareness Day, Intersex Day of Solidarity. The Darlington Statement has been mentioned. I was a signatory, well, joint creator and signatory to that. You can affirm it online if you'd like to do something for us. And to finish up, this, I said I went down a lot of rabbit holes. This one, read it. The Y chromosome is slowly vanishing. I wonder if that includes my buggered up one. A new sex gene may be the future for men. And you know, if you think about it, we are fiddling with it all. One of the things that troubled me when we marched in the Mardi Gras parade, you remember that photograph of me with the red wig? We found out that major sponsor was an in vitro fertilisation clinic in Sydney, and that they were, in their screenings, screening out any chromosome difference. So essentially what they're looking for is Down syndrome, but in the process any other chromosomal difference was being blotted out. So intersex people in the waste paper bin, or you know, the sterile disposal thing. So we've never marched again and won't until they no longer support it. But you know, we are playing around with genetics, and you wonder whether, because I remember hearing once that the reason you used to have blood tests before you got married was to see if there was any incompatibility. Because if you've got an egg, an ovum, you know, with a blood type, and you've got a sperm with a blood type, maybe they're not meant to get together. Maybe that's why people can't get pregnant. It's nothing to do with too much hormone in chicken or whatever. I just wonder about these effects. Which brings me right back to the start. Is that what happened with the bloody dinosaurs? Especially the intersex ones. It wasn't the Big Bang. They ran out of Y chromosomes or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's my story about intersex dinosaurs. And I'm more than happy to take any questions, even the embarrassing ones. Yes.
CJ, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself. My question is, how comfortably does the intersex community fit within a wider rainbow community? Like, how welcome do you feel?
It's a good question.
And yeah, so that's things we can do there.
In this state, I've never felt anything but welcome and love and acceptance and valued for any contribution I can make. I don't profess to understand the issues of all the other bits of the rainbow community. I try, and what I'm trying to do is put, and Phoenix, you'll remember when I first came along to the SARA board, you know, none of you knew anything about intersex really. Anne-Marie, she contacted me recently and said, I learnt so much from you, I'm wondering if I'm intersex. And it's that people know to ask me, to include me, even if it's in a working party for just a week or something. And I seem to be the only one. There is, where is he? Government advisory group that doesn't currently have an intersex rep, is that right?
I believe they moved interstate.
Yes. So we should talk about that. Need to fix that. There is one other intersex person in Adelaide who is part of the IRA organisation, Interstate. I didn't know she existed. So, I mean, whilst I try and spread the love within the rainbow community, intersex people, it's like extracting blood to get people to get involved. Much easier in the eastern states because greater numbers. And so there is more of that get-together stuff that happens over there. And I've really enjoyed the get-together stuff that I do in the rainbow community as a whole. And it helps me to feel not so weird, because you're all weird. Yes, Will. Lovely Will. I've known Will for half a lifetime.
Thanks, CJ. As an old gay liberationist, the importance of coming out. So coming out as intersex, how is that, and how important is that, and how out are you with the wider community? How does that work?
Another good question. Yeah, I use coming out because it's a term used in the broader rainbow community. And I did have to come out of a box and start to talk about it for my own sanity. The hardest people to talk about it with, parents, your best friend, your husband, your lover. Don't get me started on how I felt any time that because I got divorced a very long time ago, just in case you haven't worked that out. Anytime I was thinking about another relationship, becoming physical with somebody, yes, I know I don't have much body hair. I am hetero, by the way. Men kind of like that. Men kind of like my white skin that glows in the dark. Because my skin, I never went through puberty. I've never had a pimple in my life. I couldn't cook an egg with the oil in my skin. It's bone, motherless, dry. That's all part of my variation. So it's in really personal relationships where I get the EBGBs. It's, in a way, easier to talk to a room full of people than to one. And I've become very good at picking my moments of which one to talk to and when. And I did that actually on the tour I was on for 2 weeks in WA, a couple that I really got to like. And we were sitting in a very solemn place, the Anzac Memorial in Albany. And by the way, when I left that building, I went around the corner and I almost vomited with crying. It was just, because Albany was one of the launching points for the troops going off to war. Beautiful memorial building, but there's a lot of imagery and so on. And I was sitting with Bob, have no idea why it started, and actually, it was Intersex Awareness Day, that's why. And it was like right up here with me, and I had nobody to tell, nobody to share it with. And so I shared it with Bob and his lovely wife Sue, a little tiny thing, he's like this, she's like this. And they were just adorable. So it's picking situations and moments, but I'm talking 50 years, 55 years of life and all the experiences that throws up. The reason my marriage ended, I was in an abusive marriage in the end. So I went through that, then I went through a divorce. That meant I was never going to have kids, all of those things. And then I found other intersex dinosaurs. And it's very, very slow. I can still remember the first time I walked into that room in Melbourne expecting that they would all look like me, kind of. But they all look like you. Like licorice all sorts of, but more pronounced than you. People who have enormous height because of their XXXXY chromosomes or XYYY or whatever it is. People that do look different, visibly different. I don't think I do that much, but I have to tell you, I'm naked under here. I'm all intersex. I've got this on my forehead everywhere I go. It's my identifier. It's in my soul and I can't avoid it, and I process everything through that filter. And my friends, and Kathy and Mike are good friends that are here today, they'd probably say you'd never know most of the time. Most people don't see me cry. And one of the things about intersex people is most of us, as you can imagine, are sterile. Therefore, no children, no grandchildren, that's my case, very alone. And I had a really bad case, second case I had of COVID back in April. I've never felt more alone in my life. I thought I was going to die in my house. Shocking. I guess by sharing makes me feel less alone. Coming out of the closet makes me feel less alone, ultimately.
Thank you very much. It was brilliant, really, really informative. Thank you so much for sharing your very personal story, which is very personal, and you know some of the history. Really, really great. Thank you very much.
Can I leave now?
Yes, you can. I'm just going to finish off just a little bit. A bit of a call to action. So in October 2021, the Australian Human Rights Commission released their report ensuring health and bodily integrity with the document called Towards a Human Rights Approach for People Born with Variation of Sex Characteristics. In the lead up to the South Australian 2022 election, the now Labor government confirmed their opposition to forced medical interventions without the consent of patients and committed to working with SA Health to review the recommendations of the Australian Human Rights Commission, ensuring health and bodily integrity report. But of course, we are still waiting for the results of that or the completion of that report and releasing of it. So we join the Intersex Human Rights Australia in calling on all state and territory governments, including the South Australian government, to enact the recommendations of this report and end unnecessary medical procedures modifying the sex characteristics of intersex people without their personal consent. We're also asking them to establish an independent body, including members with lived experience, to oversee decisions where medical procedures are necessary but the person is unable to provide that consent. We're also asking to ensure intersex people are provided with fair and accurate information and support to be able to make fully informed decisions about their own healthcare. Also, provide funding and provide access to affirming peer support, counselling and other intersex-led resources to ensure intersex people and their families are supported at every step in their journey. Also, address stigma and discrimination through public and targeted education initiatives. And finally, to redress the injustice of the past and provide support for healing. By doing so, we can protect the rights of intersex South Australians, prevent harm and promote greater understanding and acceptance of intersex people in our state. So I ask you all, will you stand with our intersex community? Thanks a lot again, CJ. So what I do ask, when we get our website up and going again, because I even produced this lovely QR code that would have taken us to our website. We do have on our Sarah website an intersex page. Sorry, Maro. On there is, you can read the Darlington Statement. Of course, it is on the Human Rights page as well. You can also sign a petition to support these actions that I talked about. There is also a few other little videos that you can read and some information. What I'd encourage you to do, what we're going to do when we get everything working again, I'm going to create another post on our Facebook and Instagram about the great night that we had tonight. What I want everyone in this room to do, if you've got social media, is share, share, share. Share the post, share the stories that you've heard tonight, so that our intersex members of our community don't have to bear all of that. It's all of our journey, and it's all of our responsibility to support all of our community. And so, yeah, please do that. Thank you very much for coming.